I saw the light on the night that I danced by her window. Okay, don't leave me alone up here now, because I've only been here 30 years. So when I do, I saw the light on the night that I danced by her window. Everybody go, da 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 da. Okay. I saw the light on the night that I danced by her window. I saw the flickering shadows of love on her blind. She was my woman. As she deceived me, I watched it out of my mind.
Every time I have visitors coming to town, say, listen, I don't care what we're going to do or where we're going to go to eat or whatever, but we've got to go see Saucy.
I come back because I enjoy the type of stuff that she does. I like the music that she does, and I like the crowd that it brings, and that it's a diverse age range of people all coming for the same kind of good time.
Here's a woman, you're not going to believe her. She's been in this business, I don't know for how long, 30, 40, 50 years. She's a gas. You'll love her, and you'll just have a good evening.
She loves that we sing out and sing with her, and that's what drives her the most. She's not there to sing for us. She's there to get us to sing, and that's what's so great, that she just wants everyone to overpower her and clap their hands and snap, and it's just a great time.
And it's catching. For whatever reason, it is catching. Once you get caught, you cannot resist. You come right back time after time.
Song by Sylvia. Sky smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see.
I grew up in a village in Canada, a village called Mount Forest, Ontario, Canada. I went through the school system there, right up to high school. And I had a good childhood, lots of snow. We were in a farm area, although we lived right in the town, and my mother had a dress shop. Of course, in those days, you participated in the town activities, you know. There was skating, and not so much skiing as snowshoeing in those days. I was 6 years old when I started to study piano. I remember Glenn Miller Orchestra coming on late from the Newark Pompton Turnpike, and I'd get up and dance by myself, you know, in the house. And that was the way my childhood went until I graduated from high school there, and from there I went to the University of Toronto. I studied with the nuns, and the Conservatory of Music in Toronto would send out somebody to give us our tests at the end of the year. You know, normally you'd be in a school where you'd have the tests right there. So the one year they sent out Sir Ernest Macmillan, who was the conductor of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. But all the while that I was at the University of Toronto, I was doing college shows, musicals. I wasn't the main person, but I was like a feature act. And I kept doing that in Columbus at Ohio State. And this, they called him, in those days they called him personal manager. He saw me at a party playing, and he wanted to know if I could think about show business. And I kind of had it in my mind. I wasn't sure I had the temperament for it. I thought I might have the talent for it. And I was appearing in a little town in Indiana, and a band leader from New England, Barney Rapp and his New Englanders, was appearing. And they all come into the hotel, and they came in, and he said, you know, I think you might like radio and nightclub, and maybe I could arrange an audition. Because he was based in Cincinnati, he arranged an audition in Cincinnati at radio station WLW, which at that time was 50,000 watts, and you could hear it all over the country. In fact, you could hear it in Europe. So I went on the road, continued on the road, and I got to Akron, Ohio, and I got a call from him saying he had an audition for me at WLW Cincinnati. Now that WLW was a star maker station. Prior to my being there, Doris Day was there, and the Mills Brothers were there, and Vaughn Monroe was there. And so I came off the road and went in for an audition and became the staff vocalist. Not the only one. There were 4 or 5 staff vocalists. And then I had my own piano and voice show.
Blue skies do I see.
Welcome to the Sylvia Show, a package of words and music gift wrapped for you.
And then I sang with the different groups there, the station musicians, like a quintet. They would call it the Miss... I wasn't Saucy at that point. It would be the Sylvia Show.
You're gonna love me like nobody's loved me, come rain or come shine.
WLW was Clear Channel at that point. You could get it all over the country in parts of the world. My mother used to hear me up in Canada. She was thrilled because she had heard me on CFRB in Toronto, because I was going to school there, at the university. And she, for her was a big thrill. And for anybody who knew me, just to turn on the radio. And then I was looking at a letter from a diary that Mike found, where I found where I had been on a television show, one of their first television shows, 47. So WLW is if you could be hired there, that was a coup. It brought me into radio in depth. I not only was a pianist, but then I was a singer, and then they teach you to read copy. And they had dramatic shows there too, so I fell into that. So you learn all aspects of radio if you want to.
Happy Thanksgiving Day, Em. Did you eat lots of turkey today?
Did I eat turkey?
Well, that seems to establish the question pretty well. But how about an answer? Did you?
You bet I did. I started off with a nice big drumstick and wound up with a wishbone.
Well, what'd you wish for?
More turkey. Man, I love that stuff.
Sounds like a beautiful romance, Em. But look, if you can tear yourself away from dreams of turkey, how about some Thanksgiving trimmings right here?
All right, Sylvia, serve us something fast and bright.
Put that kiss back where you found it. Got my dreams all built around it. Put that kiss back where you found it. Put it back right away.
One night, I was doing my piano voice show late, 12:30. And I got a call. And the voice said, "I'm Duke Ellington's manager." He said, we need a vocalist. He said, and I have a question. He said, "Are you black?" And I said, "No, I'm not." Because there was that quality in the voice. He said, "Wow," he says, "we're going to offer you a job." So that's, one of the exciting things that happened to me. And I stayed there for 5 years, at which time I met, my first husband. He was a colonel in the Air Force at Wright Field, which was just out of Cincinnati. And then he got transferred to Detroit, and I found a place there called the Town Pump in the Royal Palm Hotel, which was sort of like a Damon Runyon place. You'd get executives from General Motors, executives from Chrysler, and then you might get somebody coming in with a gun, which we did. And all of us got underneath the piano. So that was a very exciting time. And it's a diary of when I started in the business. The date I'm looking at now, August 3rd, 1945. And it was, what I did was, or what I must have done was I recorded little bits of information and expenses and of each day. and the reaction to the crowd and the crowd's reaction to me. And so I'm looking here, breakfast 47 cents, music was 95 cents. I put a deposit on a gown for $5. Excellent crowd. My microphone broke, so I couldn't sing. Many compliments, but I didn't smile much. And a captain checked me up on it. I was slipping. I must watch that. We discussed it, and he and his friends were nice about it. Stan Zucker set up the photo session. This was the top entertainment photographer in the country, Maurice Seymour. And as I said, there were 2 or 3. This is one, and this is the other, and this is one, this is the other, and I think there's a third. And what's interesting, he kept saying to me, look sexy, look sexy. You know how you remember so many things and then forget certain things? Look sexy. And so I did the best I could.
Oh, pretty sexy.
Days may be cloudy or sunny.
Then I had another agent by the name of Stan Zucker. And then when my 2 albums came out, then he booked me on a tour. I got all my friends there, you know, I'm going to do this big album and everything. They talked through the whole thing. He said, Saucy, your friends have just killed you now. We're going to have to do this whole thing over with strangers. We did another recording of that the next night, and it went great.
I'm Saucy Sylvia, slightly risque, but that's okay. We're all grown-ups, aren't we? Well, aren't we?
We did another album in Cleveland at the Virginian, and it was exciting for me, but then it was there was a kind of anxiety about it because I just didn't know how it worked. I found out how it worked, you know, recording, and then when people started to buy them, then I couldn't believe it, you know. And I'm not very much for selling. I'm not into the commercial end of things. I'd rather give everything away and everybody's having fun with it. And that's how I feel in general.
Like old times, having you to walk with seems like...
I consider that stand-up comedy is probably the most difficult of all the craft. And I've heard Jerry Lewis say that. Because you're right there, you're standing there, win or lose, take it or leave it. And like I fell into different things, I fell into that. I've been doing comedy at the piano. And then when I decided to branch out, like when I'm on the cruise ships, or when I'm doing bus trips where we have to condense it for an hour, I get up and walk around and chat with the people in the audience, and from there, for me, it seemed just natural to go into my comedy routine. Peggy's from Virginia. Carol with an E is from Virginia. Gail is from Virginia. The South is going to rise again. Absolutely. Right, Irma?
Virginia.
Okay, you want to introduce me to your fellow?
Brent from Virginia.
Frank? Right, from Virginia, the state of Virginia. Because you know how things are on these ships. You know, it might not be your fella, it might be your husband. you never know. You never know, right, Alan? Right, okay, right, Gene? Right, yeah, you have to say right, Sauce. Yeah, you have to say that because I used to be a teacher. Of course, my uncle would flip if he knew I was doing this. He thinks I'm a call girl in Virginia. And old teachers never die, they just lose their principles. And old principals never die, they just lose their faculties. I think it was also Glenn Pullen from the Cleveland Plain Dealer when he wrote me up, when he said this lady is a cross between Lucille Ball and Bob Hope. And I thought, what a wonderful thing. Like the other night at the club, somebody asked me for the Spoonerism. Have you heard me do that? Yeah. That's not a piece of material that you can do at every minute. You have to set it up. You have to explain what it is. On my stand-up, which you're going to see, I do that every show.
We better explain exactly what a spoonerism is, just in case we forgot it from, grade school or high school grammar.
That's right. Well, spoonerism, actually the word was derived from the Reverend William Spooner, who was for many years warden at New College in Oxford, England. And he was so prone to transpose letters, sounds, and even whole words that his reputation became famous locally, and then it spread throughout England. And finally, the word spoonerism passed into the language, and of course now you find it in all the dictionaries and encyclopedias.
Well, let's hear one of your famous stories.
Well, this is the story of Red Riding Hood. A long time ago, even before Frenchman Banklin invented the Patter to Evening Soast, a little girl named Riding Red started out through a thick forest to take a lasket of bunch to her gick grandmother.
And also there's a group out in Las Vegas that do, they're in drag, and he's been on television. They're wonderful. And one night we were at a convention in Las Vegas, so we went in to catch a show, and he had the spotlight focused on me. He says, "I've made a fortune on this lady's material."
I guess when you met me, it was just...
I was appearing in Fort Lauderdale, and the agent there called me one day and he said, "You want to go to Newport, Rhode Island?" And I said, Dick Hoekstra was his name. I said, "Dick, I don't know anybody in Newport, Rhode Island, and I'm used to packing rooms, who's going to come see me?" And I said, "No, I'm going to..." He said, "Saucy, you like challenges." And I said, "Well, I know I like challenges." So anyway, he called me back. He never let it go, by the way. And so I did. I come in, and that's when I met Mike.
Back in 1970, Sylvia came into Newport on a gig at the King's Inn on Bellevue Avenue, and it was for the American Cup races. So she was so great that she came back 3 or 4 times, and at one time I went up and brought the show, and we were talking afterwards, and I said, "Well, look, if you didn't have to work every night, I'd take you out to dinner." She said, "Well, I don't have to go to work till 9 o'clock. So that's how it all began, and we just hit it off right away.
When we used to go to the MK and watch her play at the MK, there was Mike over at the bar drooling. I remember he coming in with some of his, the guys from the electric company, and boy, that was it. He would sit there almost every night and drool. And God bless them when they got married, really. It was absolutely, even the whole city, I think, was really ecstatic that those two got together.
And I love the rapport between Saucy and Mike. It's too bad everybody can't do that sort of thing. This young generation, you, take some notes from her. Dedicate yourself to those to whom you're devoted to and those you marry. And when you marry, you don't marry yourself, you marry the person, and that's the case with Saucy.
And he saw Saucy perform, and he said to the people around the table, this is a story we've heard, I'm going to marry that woman. And by God, he did.
That's a good story.
Isn't that something?
It's true.
That's a story. I don't know, but that's what
Yeah.
we've heard. We've heard all
That's
kinds
good.
of stories.
That's good.
I don't know, well, we do everything together. We,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm just going to give him the same
we've
answer.
had our problems, you know, I had, and we just do everything together, you know.
That's
And we
nice.
like the same things. We're very fortunate.
We cook
travel,
together,
We
we-
cook together. We go out to dinner. We enjoy the same restaurants.
We like
and
the same
everything.
things. We like old movies. We like
Yeah.
movies, period. And we like good songs. And we like Broadway. And our tastes are so, identical. We have no problem working together. Well, the radio show, we're doing songs in their entirety. And we're telling stories about the songs. And we're doing remote songs. And also songs that never made it. Songs that people haven't heard for a long time. What is so rare as a day in June? To now we have never been told. The old questions answered by one that is new. What is so rare as you? So rare. You're like the fragrance of blossoms fair, sweet as a breath of air, fresh with the morning dew. So rare. You're like the sparkle of old champagne. Rehearsal is a riot. It's hilarious because this is a new field for him. He is, he worked for the electric company for 50 years. I'll let him tell you his own story. But he's, I think, quite brilliant. And he writes the radio show on his own. And he'll pick out the songs, he researches, he goes to the libraries, and he puts the show together. He gives it to me on Saturday. I read it. And then Saturday afternoon, we rehearse. Well, now he goes from writer, producer, director. He goes to the part of the director. So now he can make sure I'm going to do it the way he wants, even if it's a tap on the shoulder to reinforce his point of view. So we really have a hilarious time at rehearsals, but he's so good. He's good with tempos, and he's good with phrasing, and he sings himself, and he also plays.
You remember when we first started doing the radio show, we did a program on fashions.
Oh, right.
Ladies' fashion. Starting with Adam and Eve, of course. So I found the song, but I'm going to look for that show because I think there's some great songs. Here we go. Calypso.
It all began with Adam and Eve.
Okay, you're going with the chorus first.
Yes, you said that.
That's right. We'll teach the audience the chorus.
Yes,
okay,
right,
ready?
Right.
It all began with Adam and Eve, a stick and an apple and a fig tree leaf. It may sound strange and hard to believe, but it all began with Adam and Eve. It's a pretty song that nobody's doing.
In every picture and every song, I feel the nearness of you.
Sometimes I'm a little hard when I'm rehearsing.
Sometimes,
on Saturdays. I'll throw the script, I'll write it, and on Saturday I'll give her the script, she'll read it, and then we spend about an hour so going over the songs, and then the...
He does all the research. But then on the show sometimes I'll digress and then he gets mad. You know, on the show live, you know. And then everybody gets a big charge out of that and then he'll pat me on the head.
And with the sun in the morning and the moon in the evening, I'm all right. How'd you like that the beginning, taking stock of what I have and what I haven't? Who does that sound like? Does it sound like Ethel Merman?
Well, I do all the Gershwin songs and the Cole Porter songs and everything, but I think if we were to go dancing, which we love to do, and we went up to the band leader, you know, and said, would you play a song, we probably would ask for that. Our Love Is Here to Stay, which is the title of, could be our theme.
When you talk music in Newport, you're talking Saucy Sylvia. She's a wonderful person. She's a wonderful lady. She does a lot of stuff on the outside that no one ever hears about.
I established a scholarship for a high school senior going on in the field of music. Part of my legacy is making sure that our youngsters in the schools know what live music is. So to that end, I have put concerts in the schools every year. I think it's important that children know about music and all the other arts, poetry and everything else. And if you open up their eyes and ears to live music, they may forge ahead and become musicians, but at least they'll have an appreciation for it and an understanding.
Coax me a little bit, coax me a little bit, if you want to be kissed.
I'm really two people. I'm one person that's home and likes to keep everything private. And then I'm the person that's out in showbiz, on stage.
I'm George Mandis, and I came here to Newport back in 1972, the fall of '72, as general manager of what was then the Sheridan Islander Hotel. About 6 months later, I came across Saucy Sylvia entertaining at another location here in the Newport area, and we got together, talked about her coming to the Old Mug, and she's been here ever since. So she's lived through 5 or 6 managers, 2 different owners of the hotel, maybe 3 different owners. So at least I made one good decision in my lifetime.
The nightclub show is something that I don't know what I'm going to do till I get there and assess the crowd. And that can change in a minute. People will talk about my memory. I consider that a gift. My mother had it, may her soul rest in peace, and my father had it, may his soul rest in peace, and I so far am blessed with it, but there's no trick to it. It's just a gift, and I use that in my show. Take a course. Do they ever return? That's good.
I was first introduced to Saucy coming over the Newport Bridge. I was driving across on a Sunday afternoon en route to work in Plymouth, and I turned the radio on, heard this wonderful voice and the songs that took me back to World War II. In World War II, music sustained me, and this type of singing always brought great joy to me. A few weeks later, we found her here at the Newport. We was a Sheridan Islander at that time, and we just came to become thrilled with her. She creates memories, nostalgic memories And then she also creates current memories that'll stay with you for years to come. That kind of music that crosses all generations is good for the soul, and the laughter that goes with it is good for you.
So we met her about 22 years ago. We came in and we were delighted with her, and when we were in Jamestown we came almost every weekend. We just loved her. We loved her style, her music.
I've been at the Goat Island Hotel for 20 years. I've been a bar manager, night supervisor, bartender. I've worked with Saucy 50 weekends a year for 20 years. And her whole thing is to totally entertain the people and make sure they have a good time, and she gets a few laughs out of them, and then she's happy. So
on Friday nights, particularly for the past 13 years, and that's how long we've been in town. And I think in Newport, Friday night is a good night for the locals to be out, and I just can't think of a better place to be.
I started coming here in about 1990. I really didn't know much about Saucy. I had friends visiting from the Cape, and we had a dinner party, and they said after the dinner party was over, "What can we do in Newport? What's going on?" I said, "Gee, I really don't know." And they said, "Well, there's a woman named Saucy Sylvia who's filled in for Rocky King down at the Sandbar on the Cape, and I understand that she plays here in Newport." And I said, "Wonderful, let's go." And at that time, this was the Sheraton, and so we went over, and I was hooked.
I moved to Newport in 1975 on a Saturday, and my first night out was Saturday night. And after having dinner here at the Hyatt, which was the DoubleTree in those days, the Sheraton Islander, someone told me that I had to go to the Old Mug Lounge and hear this marvelous performer. So naturally, I did with my family. And I was pleasantly surprised to meet a woman on stage who, within being in that room for about 5 minutes, she found out who I was, when I had moved to town, welcomed me, and started a friendship which has lasted for 26 years.
I look around, and then I'll get a few names, and I'll see who's reticent about giving their name. Like sometimes they're reticent for the moment, and then an hour later they're a whole different thing.
She's about the only person that I've ever met in my 25 or 30 years in the hotel business that could hold an audience for years and they keep coming back. I would get personal phone calls in my office from people who had stayed here a year, 2 years ago, and they'd say, "Is that lady still playing in the lounge, Miss Spicy? What's her name?" And I'd, "Hey, she's still here."
Saucy, when you meet her, brings a dynamic feeling. She's powerful, she's gentle, she is beautiful, and she just brings whatever that part of herself is that makes you feel like you're her best friend.
That's the one thing about Saucy is you could walk in and your song, your number one song or somebody else's number one song, she's going to know it. She's going to know how to sing it and what it is. And she can sing it for you. You can walk up to the piano and say, "This is the song I want to hear right now. This is the song I want to sing." And she'll know it and she'll play it for you. And no one else in the room may know it, but it's your song and she'll be able to sing it.
I will tell you, when the younger folks in their 20s see Saucy, they may grimace for a moment, but then after a few songs they're right into the show and find that she's timeless.
I love the type of music that she does. We do musical theater, and so that's really fun for us. And I like the diverse crowd that it draws, and I think it's fun that it's all ages of people that are brought together for like a common fun time.
Well, and he would come home and talk about it and show the pins and try to describe this wonderful woman who sings songs that we all know and love to sing, and we never get an opportunity to do anything like that, to all like sing out and just sit around a piano and have a great time. And she's everything that any of us would ever enjoy to do. So he always recommended it and tried to describe it, but it's so much better. And we always come back. It's like, is it a Saucy Saturday? Like, do we have time to go see Saucy?
From the moment I walked in the door, I was singing with her. I don't know how I would describe it besides that you're going to have a good time.
During World War II, after the Normandy invasion, we were racing across Europe, and every moment you'd try to sing a song or something to forget what your situation was at the time. And those same songs are the songs that Saucy sings now. So the words come back to you, even though they're 50 more years ago. They come back to you. And the happy times come back to you. And the sad times and the bad times tend to recede, which is what music's all about.
Her patriotism is remarkable. I mean, if you hear her Sunday afternoon show, she frequently has something, especially on a holiday.
Can you see anything about a Yankee that's so phony? I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy, Yankee Doodle Doodle Da. You're a grand old flag, you're a high flag, and forever it keeps me.
My mission, of course, is laughter is the best possible thing for your health, and that's my mission, to keep everybody laughing and keep them healthy.
Everybody on the beat. Thank you, Sarah. I'm known as Agent Janie Bond, a name of which I've grown quite fond. I've had it embroidered on all of my panties. Just look me up. I'm the woman for Mandy. I'm Agent 0069. I'm an undercover lover, 'cause undercover's where I shine.
And by the end of the night, she'll definitely have you singing. If you've never sung a note in your whole life, Saucy will have you singing by the end of the night. People from their early 20s, people in their 70s and 80s, the crowd in that lounge every weekend is always different, because there's always a new crowd in the hotel, and they all have a good time. She gets them all singing, and they all leave with a smile on their face.
And somebody said to me the other day, you know, why don't you retire? Don't you want to retire? I said, where would everybody go? Where would everybody go if I retired? And now I've got a whole bunch of young people, a whole new crowd coming in, bridging the generation gap.
You should care for me.
And now live from the living room of the Hyatt Regency Newport, the Miss Saucy Sylvia Show.
It's a very special day for Saucy. It's been 25 years that she's been on our airways, and we took a look at it a couple months ago, and Saucy kind of surprised me and said that you know, we've got a 25th anniversary in July. And I decided we needed to do something about it. So she's been putting together little vignettes of the past 25 years, and we've got a few surprises for her today.
What are we going to do today?
What are we going to do today? You're going to take us back.
Take us back.
Theme-wise and because our theme was not the same as it is today. And there'll be 5 or 6 clips from different shows. And
we're
some
hoping
songs
everything will
our opening
flow.
song. And Mike's hoping that it'll all work.
Yeah.
Jen, Mrs. Elshont, she's 103. Oh my goodness. She's here.
Yes, she's here.
103. I love you. Oh, Mrs. Elshont, what a thrill. Well, friends, good afternoon and welcome to our show, our 25th anniversary show. It's great to see so many of our friends here at the Hyatt Regency in Newport, and it's hard to believe that it's been 25 years since our very first show. It all started on July 18, 1976, the country's bicentennial year. On our first show, we set the format by saying, ladies and gentlemen, lest we forget some of the happenings that made this country great, each week we will go back in time to a year, or a place, or a person, and create a mood of nostalgia. Let us reminisce, not in longing for those moments to return, but to enjoy the memories and to learn from them in our quest toward a wonderful and more rewarding future. Our opening song that day was this 1931 song. Skies are cloudy and gray. They're only gray for a day. Did you ever find heaven right in your arms, saying I love you, I do? Well, the dream